Welcome to FM's Next Gen, a podcast from Building Operating Management Magazine and FacilitiesNet, where we talk about what's coming next in facilities from the perspective of young facility managers working in the industry today. I'm your host, Naomi Millan, Senior Editor of Building Operating Management. This is episode 1 of FM's Next Gen, featuring Daniele Haley, Supervisor of Facilities and Capital Planning with Somerset County Public Schools in Maryland. We first met at NFMT in Baltimore and are connecting here on video chat. Daniele, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. To begin with, if you could just tell us, who you are, where you work, and what do you do?
Sure. My name is Daniele Haley. I am Supervisor of Facilities and Capital Planning for Somerset County Public Schools here in Maryland. So a little bit about what I do. I oversee construction, planning, maintenance. I have a 5-member maintenance crew, as well as safety and security for all of our 10 public school facilities.
Awesome. And how long have you been doing that?
5 years. Yep.
Did you come into it at this position, or did you start at a different point in the organization?
No, I came into it at this position. Like any other job, it's kind of expanded my duties. Other duties as assigned is kind of a running joke around here, but the role has expanded a little bit. But no, this was what I was hired to do.
Awesome. So, can you give an example of what you're doing? I don't know if it's easy to pinpoint, what you're doing now that's different from when you started.
Yeah. My background before I started here, I'm a licensed architect. So I actually worked for a private architecture firm for a number of years, and I worked predominantly on educational projects. So it was a natural progression for me to sort of move over to the owner side. So maybe not as much that my job has changed, but my expectations of the job or my understanding of the job has changed. So when I was hired, I understood it to be the owner's representative when we do school construction projects. So it was that's my forte. And then again, I knew that it came with some other responsibilities. So it certainly has evolved into being a facility manager, which frankly was a position that I didn't really know existed until I wore the title. So again, I knew I'd be doing maintenance, but I didn't understand at the time how much that involved beyond just repairs, but preventative maintenance and environmental compliance and inspections, things like that. And it's a lot of it now is statewide meetings and best practices sharing, and I serve on a legislative work group now, so it has certainly evolved. And then the safety and security thing was something that got added a couple years ago, and that's all new to me. I'm working with a lot of law enforcement. But again, it ties together. We're a really small county, and so it makes sense for the person who's, helping to design and implement, say, security features into a building to understand the safety, aspect of the training and things like that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, that's really interesting. So, what made you decide to go to the owner side, in-house?
I really love project management. I mean, for those who don't know about architects, a lot of it is sort of the main point of contact for a project. So not only the design, but then also sort of the facilitator. So I liked the interpersonal relationships as far as dealing with engineers, contractors, owners, and being that sort of, super organized project leader. So the owner side, I was just really excited about it because as the architect, you kind of designed the building, you saw it maybe through completion, but then you kind of walked away and you didn't really revisit it. So I've really enjoyed being involved a lot more on the front end now as far as planning, procuring funding, and then I know that I'll be the one operating the building in the end. So that's been giving me a really unique perspective, especially being the maintenance supervisor, because I make decisions differently than I would have as just an architect. So now I'm more cognizant of future maintenance budgets and just maintainability, for lack of a better word, all the way down to not wanting to have to repaint every year, so picking finishes and things like that I know, and understanding that I'm going to have to answer to all the end users when they're dissatisfied with something. So I I've liked the more, the longer approach to building. I love buildings, and I love being involved in the construction process. So I'm appreciative that I've been able to see, like currently we're working on a $42 million project here that's a new technical high school.
Oh, wow.
So when I was hired, we had just started into sort of the feasibility study, and now it'll be opening in September. So I've been able to see that one through my entire career here. So that's been really neat.
That is exciting. That's like your, one of the babies that you're.
It is. I do call it my baby.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, like looking back in early days in your life, like did you always envision yourself having a job in the built environment?
It's funny, somebody asked me this question yesterday. I'm on like I said, a legislative work group, and it's made up of some delegates, senators, but also some engineers, facility planners, architects, kind of all around the map. So somebody asked that question yesterday, which was, did you know, like as a teenager, that you wanted to be an architect? And if you did you know what an architect really did? Because this gentleman was really funny, but he still didn't even, as an adult that works in facilities, quite understand the role of the architect. And it was neat to hear all the other architects sort of tell their story. But for me, I always liked building. I was raised building things. My dad's not a builder, but he can build our house and things like that. So he taught me a lot, and I always enjoyed making things. I still do. I drag my husband around the house and make him, we do projects all the time. But so I knew that I loved art. I knew that I loved math, and I knew I loved making things. So architecture became kind of that, that combination of all those things. But I never in a million years imagined that I'd be sitting in this seat doing what I do now, because it's actually a running joke when I'm doing the security stuff. I'll be in we do active shooter training, and so I'm the one that sets it up, and we bring in a local sheriff who teaches it. But I'll always joke, well, I don't remember this day of architecture school, because it's my career has evolved so much. But I certainly appreciate going to NFMT conference, because it's nice to see that there are other facility management positions out there. Like I always feel like it's something that before I started going to something like that it was so limited to my understanding of, schools have these, that makes sense. But then, you open your eyes and go, oh, well, I guess anybody who has buildings, needs, it sounds really, probably ignorant to not know that, but until you're in it, you don't realize that hospitals and hotels and, across the board, this position exists. But it's certainly, and I understand why you're doing the podcast, because it's certainly not well advertised.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those careers that's kind of behind the scenes a little bit, unless something goes wrong, and then you're really not behind the scenes at all.
Right.
But yeah, when you're a kid and you're thinking about, like the iconic, like what can I be when I grow up? It's like a police person or a firefighter, or so it's not there's not like the Fisher Price little person, like facility manager.
Facility manager.
Well, that would be a good idea. Fisher Price, good on that. So yeah, I'm just trying to create a little bit of visibility into it, because as you said, it is a very wide field. It's a simple phrase, facility manager, but it can kind of mean a lot of things,
right,
depending on where you are. So what do you think of it so far?
I love it. I love that every single day my job changes. I mean, in some ways it becomes overwhelming, because you feel like, how am I going to get all these different things done? I'm juggling a million plates. But at the same time, it's never boring. And I never thought I'd find myself longing for more hours in the day to get work done, and for more time in my office. So I love, I'm always out and about. I might be out on a roof of one of our schools, or I might be speaking in front of the governor, trying to get funding. So it's ever changing. I certainly love the building part of it, because that part is sort of the more rewarding. People are really excited about it, versus sometimes when, like you said, something goes wrong, that part's not as fun. But just, I think we try to, being a facility manager in a school system, we try not to lose focus of what the primary goal of everybody is, educating children. So to the extent that we can operate behind the scenes, and I kind of hope sometimes people don't know who I am, because it means everything's going well in their building. And so I do like that, but that's probably the number one thing is probably just the flexibility and the ever-changing nature of it.
Yeah. So right now we're talking, and I can see that you're in your office. So how much would you say you spend time in your office? Like 10% of your day, 5%?
I'm lucky if I get one day a week where I would be in my office uninterrupted, and I have an assistant, and she's more than an assistant. She's an accounting associate, and she wears a lot of hats too. And we always joke because I'll say I have a meeting, and she goes, "Oh, I'm not going to see you again for days." And so it's not much. I have progress meetings, and I'm over on the construction site quite a bit. And then it's important, I think, to be out at our schools. So if there's an issue, even if it's something simple that's going to be taken care of, like if we have a power outage, I jump in my car and run to the school just to support the principal. They know what to do, but just stuff like that. So if I'm not in meetings, I'm trying to be out and about and checking on the maintenance technicians and things like that. But there is so much work to be done in here, so I do value the time that I get in here uninterrupted.
Yeah. I mean, that is one of the kind of requirements, I think, of successful facility managers. They all spend very little time just at their desk. They're out, even when they have very automated buildings, and they're still going out there face-to-face. That face-to-face is kind of priceless.
It is.
So with a lot of change, a lot of growth, and what would you say are some of the things that you are most proud of, your biggest successes, things that have made you the most excited so far in your career?
Probably the project I'm working on now. That was Somerset County, one of, if not the poorest county in Maryland. So for us to be able to secure funding, and I help. I don't do it alone, but with the help of our superintendent and deputy superintendent, our county commissioners and local politicians, we were able to get $35 million from the state to build this building. So being able to come in where there was such a need at the time when they hired me, this was already, in their plans, but they hadn't been able to execute it, yet. And so, and so when I came in, that was sort of objective number one, and being able to keep that on the trajectory that it's been on from planning to securing funding to breaking ground was huge. And now being still within budget and on time and being able to open in time for the school year on target, that's probably, the thing that I'm most proud of. Certainly didn't do it alone, but we have an awesome team of contractors and design team and that have made it, it's just really exciting. And I get to drive by the building every day. It's right across the street from my office here, so I can walk over there. So I drive by every day, probably at least twice a day, if not, 10 times a day. And just really neat being out in the community and people now getting excited about it and, stopping me if, we're out to lunch and going, oh, my gosh, we saw the building. It looks so good. And when's it going to be open? And being able to say, yep, we're on time. We're going to open. And it's just so needed in Somerset County. We're one of the last counties in Maryland to get a state-of-the-art tech center like that. So I'm really excited about that.
That's fantastic. So tell me more about the building. What is it going to be like?
Well, it's our current building that I'm actually sitting in is the existing Technology and Career Center. It was built in 1976, and the Board of Ed shares it with the program now. And this building's about 50,000 square feet. So the new building that we're building across the street is 100,000 square feet. So it's double the size. We're able to add some programs. So we have, I think, 15 Maryland CTE programs. So some of the programs we're adding are like a Project Lead the Way pre-engineering. We're very close to NASA, to Wallops facility here. So we're trying to do something with aerospace. We're going to have a horticulture program, and then we have we have a culinary arts program. We're adding a diesel program. We already have a really robust automotive program. But there's a lot of really technology intense programs. We've got bioengineering, we've got IT networking, interactive media, but then there's also carpentry, masonry, HVAC. So that's really cool because even the contractors that are working on the project right now are so excited about it. So it's just, like I said, it's so needed for those trades people. And in Somerset County, because it is a more rural and a poorer county, we don't have maybe as many students that want to go right into the college path, but that maybe want to go straight into career or that need to. So to be able to offer that. And then the other cool thing about it is that we're hoping it'll be like a community center. So we've already, have talked to the Sheriff's Department about continuing education there, and just we have a welding shop, so any recertifications, things like that we can do with partnership with the county and the local colleges. We're going to try to kind of keep the building active 24/7. Mm-hmm. So it's a really neat opportunity. I mean, when you walk down the halls of this building, we joke that it's like walking back in time. So for the kids to go over there and see the, brand new state of the art with all the latest and greatest technologies is just so cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
So would that be like they would go to school there? That would be the building that they go to?
Well, we have 2 high schools here in the county. Again, it's a really small county, and so what they do is they come over for a half day. Okay. So it's not a comprehensive high school. They don't have a cafeteria. They have a culinary program, but they don't have a traditional cafeteria and gym and stuff. So there's a morning group. I believe it's the seniors come over in the morning, and then the juniors in the afternoon. I might have that reversed, but and then we're opening it up because of the expansion of programs, being able to open it up to the 9th and 10th graders. And right now, our intermediate students come over, I think, once a week, and they tour sort of the different programs, get to see what's offered there, so they can kind of decide as they get to that level which path they want to take. Right. So it's really neat. And we do a lot in partnership. This morning I had a Arbor Day celebration planning meeting, and we're going to have the culinary arts students cook for it, and we're going to have the criminal justice students be traffic control and things like that. So it's such a neat facility that we have, and to be able to give them the space they need is so exciting.
That is totally exciting. And, all those fields, that's where you want to be at.
Yeah. Well, and that's what we tell people, a welder can make really good money, and they're needed, and diesel mechanics, especially here on the Eastern Shore. And I have contractors call me all the time and say, do you have somebody I need, I need a carpenter, I need this. And so to be able to have that, avenue for them to go and, potentially get job placement right out of high school is incredible, and get certifications. We've got a certified nursing program. So some of those kids are getting the college-ready certifications to put them ahead of the game.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. So that's a really great highlight. What have been some of the challenges that you've had to overcome or face to this point in your career? I know, let's start the list.
There's a lot, yeah. It's hard. My favorite saying is the sins of my fathers. It's hard being the keeper of 600,000 square feet of buildings that I didn't build. I joke that my name will be on the plaque there at the new building, and I will accept all criticisms of things we did, but it's hard when we're dealing with very old buildings and not a lot of money. Certainly everybody's operating budgets are low, and when it's a decision between a new teacher and a maintenance technician, that's an easy decision for the Board of Ed, and I don't fault them or our commissioners, but it's just everybody's, the maintenance dollars just don't go as far as they should. So probably one of the biggest things is just aging facilities. Something unique about us, we have a school on an island.
What?
Yeah, it's Smith Island, if you've ever heard of the Cakes. I don't know, you're out, I think,
in Chicago.
Yeah. So here on the East Coast, you'll learn about Smith Island Cakes. But there is a little island called Smith Island. You can look it up on a map. And there's a little hamlet called Ewell on Smith Island that has about 250 residents, and we have a school there. And over the years, the population has declined there, so we actually only have 6 students this year, but we operate it as a full-blown public elementary school with 6 students and a teaching principal and 1 paraprofessional and a food service worker and a custodian. But it's about a 45-minute boat ride to get over there from the mainland. So the older kids come over here for high school. They take a boat. We have a school boat. We have 2 school boats, they're part of our bus fleet. But to get maintenance done over there is really challenging because just physically getting over there, especially in the winter. So that's probably, the most frustrating thing to have to deal with it, because I feel, and they're so sweet there, and they try not to be a bother because they know that, they're just so small, but I try to remind them, like, you can tell us if something's wrong, we will come, so it's just so hard to get out there, and it's tough. So just dealing with the aging facilities and never having enough money to do everything we want to do is tough.
You're the first facility on an island.
I know. I always talk about it at the statewide meetings. People always, I can hear them whispering, and they're like, tell them more about the school on the island. I'm like, okay. And everybody goes, I want to go there. I said, well, there's not really much there to go see, but it is really neat. Yeah. When you go to the island, like if we were to go over there, they would know we were coming, whether we told them or not. And everybody, you literally get off the dock and you walk to the school. There's not that many cars and stuff. Yeah. But it is basically a tight-knit little community, and they have great food and cakes and things like that, but there's not much there.
Wow. Well, that sounds like my heaven, but wow, that would be a huge challenge just logistically. Yeah. Cool. So, one thing, so this podcast has the focus of trying to highlight this field for young people who are considering options, either in high school or maybe people in college who are, trying to see what their future is going to be looking like. So, what would you, to someone who is listening to you right now and is saying, that sounds kind of cool, what should they be thinking about? How should they be kind of setting themselves up to explore their options?
Yeah, I guess my background being architecture, understanding a lot about buildings, I can't do anywhere near what my maintenance technicians can do, but I have to have an understanding of it. So even if it's just not even a college level understanding of how systems work and things like that, I think that's important. I think the biggest thing is just being interpersonal relationships, and because it's so important, people, it's upsetting when something's broken or there's a roof leaking or there's a power outage or there's a fire alarm going off. So just understanding, your audience, like certainly ours is, I have one student who I know very well because he's, I believe he's autistic, and he does not like the fire alarm. And we have to do fire alarm inspections and fire drills. And so when he sees me in the building, he's like, "Hi, Miss Danielle, we're not doing a fire alarm today because we have to give him advance notice so that he knows." And then I do try to remind him sometimes there might actually be a fire and we can't give you advance notice. But just understanding, I try to play to people's strengths. Like, I try not to have an ego. Being a young woman and being in charge of a huge construction project, I'm often the only woman in the room. I'm often one of the younger people. I know that'll change, the young part, not the woman part, but it's hard. People always go, "Oh, what's it like being a young woman in this field?" I just feel like as long as you're confident, that you know what you know, and then also knowing what you don't know, I think is so important. And that's what I try to tell people. And instantly, in any experience I've ever had professionally, people recognize whether you know what you're talking about or not. Or, so I think just being consistent, being genuine. And like I said, like with my technicians, I'm always like, what do you guys think? Because you know better than I do. You know these buildings better than I do. Many of them have worked here, longer than I have. Some maybe longer than I've been alive. So I think just if you're somebody that enjoys the built environment and like I said, I love building, I love repairing things, but also it's so much about the different people that we work with. And one of the biggest challenges for me was coming to work for educators, because all my bosses are educators or former educators, that have gone on from being teachers to principals to superintendents, and it's just a different mindset than the building, world and contractors that I'm used to working with. So just if you're, I think, a young person thinking about this, just if those are your interests, just understanding that it's more than just nuts and bolts and, just drawing up something.
What is that difference that you're seeing? Like what?
It's just educators. They're just trained in a certain way, and it's they certainly some of them have a better understanding of how things work, but it's like I said earlier, we have one primary goal, and it's like the kids. And my boss would kill me for saying this, but one of his big things is, well, let's not do a sprinkler inspection in the middle of a lunch shift because they've set fire alarms off. And I always say, well, they can just do one of their fire drills during that time. And he said, well, let's just avoid all the lunch shifts. And I always kind of raise my hand and go, well, there could be a fire during a lunch shift. That's, but they're so focused on education, which is what they should be doing, that we are secondary. We are support. We are literally support. And it's hard to keep that in mind when I'm, used to contractors and architects and engineers where we're all working towards like a common goal of build this building. We all have different goals here. Like the finance department has theirs and the HR department has theirs and facilities and it's easy to lose sight of their thing is educating kids, and that's what they're concerned with. So it's just where your motivations are.
The perspective that you're bringing to those situations, they're all looking at it from a slightly different angle. But I mean, that is the tricky part of facilities, that you have to figure out how to build those bridges and find that commonality, and you still have to get those sprinklers tested.
I'm sure it's probably the same in like a hospital. There's doctors that you're working with, or former doctors, things like that, and their goal is to fix patients, so they probably don't want you to be doing sprinkler inspections either.
Right. Like, there's never a good time in a hospital.
No, I can't imagine. I say that sometimes if I, happen to be in a hospital, I think, I would not want to be a facility manager. I think I get a lot of anxiety about the life safety, environmental compliance, just being in a school, because it's, again, we're keeping other people's babies all day, and so I want to make sure we're providing safe environments for them. But a hospital has got to be 10 times more stressful than that as far as making sure you have a safe environment. Yeah, definitely. So with this field, and as you've talked about, being a young person in charge of an older team, like there's this conversation about the wave of retirement that's happening and all that, and there's an expectation that there's going to be, hopefully young people coming in to fill that space. So I'm wondering, how is an influx of younger talent in the facilities management industry going to kind of change the flavor of it, the energy of it, how things are done? What do you see as people your age and younger come in to the industry? How are things going to be affected by that? I mean, I think the obvious answer is probably the technologies. I've seen it even just the short time that I've been here. When we started, our work order system was, handwritten work orders. I thought I was getting very technical by putting them in an Excel spreadsheet, which I would still print out and we would still handwrite on them. And then we went to a work order management system that we use, School Dude. But getting getting that implemented with some of the technicians, it was at first everything change is scary, but they love it. I mean, I have a technician who's about to retire this year, which is going to be such a loss because he has so much institutional knowledge. But he's probably the best one at using School Dude. He puts all this stuff in. I never have to get on him about logging his work orders. So I think technology will change the way we do some things. But I think it'll be a loss. Like I said, we won't have those, guys or girls who have this institutional knowledge that, when I started, we had one retire who had been here probably for 30 years. And we called him quite a bit after he retired when we hired his replacement because, we'd go, well, what is this pipe that we've hit when we're digging up the parking lot? Well, Joe would know. Joe would know what it is. So, and it's hard. Just record keeping wasn't great until we got into the more digital world. But I think maybe, who knows? There's probably more efficient ways of doing a lot of the things that we're doing now with the implementation of technology, and certainly a younger generation of facilities people will be able to move that along.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, here's hoping, and gosh, I'm so glad you're off of the Excel spreadsheet. But I mean, to be fair, a lot of the industry is still working off of Excel. Excel apparently cracked the code as far as like awesomeness. So thinking of that school that is about to come online for you guys, and you talked about all the trades, are you guys creating a pipeline for facilities through that too for you?
Not specifically, although we have, again, Somerset County is such a small county, so when we have someone retiring or we know we'll have a position, we kind of start reaching out to our local, contractors and things like that, people that we've worked with before. And certainly in our custodial staff, we've had plenty of former students that apply. We have plenty of students that do work study. So like this summer, we'll have some students that'll help out with a work study. So hopefully by giving them those opportunities to shadow our technicians and help change filters and things like that, they'll understand that this is a position that exists, number one, and, hopefully be interested in it because it is a great position. We do have an HVAC program, and I think that's probably the number one thing I look for now in technicians is the knowledge of complex HVAC systems, because that is probably our number one work order that we get is heating and air, and plumbing. But plumbing isn't as technical. So, and the way that heating and air is going, things are becoming so much more computerized and so much more difficult to troubleshoot if you don't have that technology background. So I think that there are certainly some students that will come from the tech school and be able to seamlessly transition into a position here or another county or another, facility management arena.
Okay, cool. I'm super excited for that facility coming online.
If you want, I'll send you a couple pictures.
That would be great. I'd love to see it. So the last question I have for you is, what do you see for yourself, for your future? How do you, the next 5 years, maybe 10 years is too far out to see what the future is. What's it looking like?
I mean, I'm already thinking about the next project because that's, again, like I said, when I started, it was like capital planning. So we do a 5 to 10 year facilities master plan. So I'm looking at, we have so many great smaller projects going on, like coming up because of all the safety and security money, we're able to upgrade a lot of systems. So we're kind of doing small stuff like that. But for me, the biggest thing is going to be our next project, which will be either a renovation to one of our elementary schools or building a new elementary school. So just gonna, keep the ball rolling and go back to that starting point of feasibility towards progress, and just trying to become more efficient because, again, our resources are so limited. I just really want our buildings to last and us, not to always be with our hand out trying to replace a building, but, trying to maintain them. But yeah, I mean, I see my role kind of continuing. I love I love kind of having a hand. Our CFO makes fun of me because I get very involved in the budget process, and I do almost all the procurement. So that's a whole other, hat that I wear. But I like being sort of all the operations, being involved in that aspect of it. And again, something I never thought I'd be doing, but that's where I think, it's headed.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a lot of hats.
Yeah.
Well, Danielle, thank you so much. This has been a great insight into what you do. Is there anything that I didn't know to ask you or forgot to ask that you want to mention for young people out there, or just about what you do?
I mean, I guess I think we're in 2019, there's not as many, maybe stereotypes, but I guess not discouraging young women specifically from going into this field. Like I alluded to before, I think as long as you're educated about what you're, talking about and acknowledging what you don't know, the respect falls into place. And I never feel like I said, my technicians until this year, every one of them was older than me and men, and they're fine with it. We have great relationships, and I just think that I wouldn't get discouraged that this is sort of maybe traditionally a male role, and that there's a benefit to being a woman in this role. It's just we bring something different to the table, and I think sometimes it can be advantageous. So I guess that's it. That's kind of like my big thing that people ask me all the time about, what's it like to be a woman? Look at you in there, and all these men in this meeting. And I said, honestly, I don't even pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, good. I'm glad it hasn't been an issue. And you're right. I think it used to be a man's world.
Right.
Facilities used to be definitely a man's world, but that has certainly changed. And every year, like, for example, NFMT with the Women in FM panel, that audience has just grown and grown and grown every year.
I know, and I've attended that every year that I've gone there.
That's awesome.
And I'm just always so impressed with the women that are on the panel and the questions and the size of the room and the amount of people that are in there.
Yeah.
I usually take a picture and send it to my boss. Say, there's more of us. We like this.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think you're right. It has certainly expanded.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Danielle, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing your perspective. This has been fantastic.
Okay, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Episode 1 of FM's Next Gen, featuring Daniele Haley, Supervisor of Facilities and Capital Planning with Somerset County Public Schools in Maryland. What did you think? Were there any questions I forgot to ask? Let me know in the comments below or send me an email at naomi.mijan@tradepress.com. Be sure to tune in next week for the next episode of FM's Next Gen. And in the meantime, find everything you could ever want to know about facilities management at FacilitiesNet, the online home of building operating management and facility maintenance decisions magazines. I've been your host, Naomi Mijan, Senior Editor of Building Operating Management.